Just watch this clip.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right?
Pretty normal question, especially if you weren't too cynical. You would probably answer rather positively, believing in the sheer force of human will. Maybe.
You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes.
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation.
No, because like, what are we doing here? Why are we looking up to these billionaire tech CEOs that are so far out of touch to the point when we ask them if we just want the human race to succeed and move on and maybe do other fantastical things, maybe move on to the stars, go to the depths of our oceans, cure all diseases, just be better as a species. We're like, we just sit there stuttering for a minute. Like, we have these rich people, these tech CEOs that are so out of touch with reality, with humanity. And we have so many examples of these people, these super rich, ultra wealthy people in a world that we call a democracy, in a world where things are supposedly even in sections of like the Western world, but in many other places, they are just largely ignored. There are multiple wars going on right now. Arguably, we have already started World War III in many ways. There are so many diseases and famines taking over the world, things that are once thought to be cured and eradicated are now coming back because of lack of scientific education and the lack of ability for people to just pick up a damn book and read it. The literacy rates are dropping all over North America and the Western world, let alone the rest of the world. And it's preventing us from seeing the fact that these rich techno billionaires are completely ruining our lives. And in today's almost unedited yap, I wanted to just kind of rant about the tech billionaire issues that have been, I guess, coming up more recently, but also shed light to some that have come up previously. Just to remind y'all that all of this is currently happening, has happened, and will continue to happen in the most fantastical ways, to the point where not only are currently we so used to these type of things, we're so used to tragedy in our media, tragedy in our news, crazy things happening all over the world, people with access to information at a button's press, at a moment's notice, seeing, you know, missiles being launched and entering their homes, and so many crazy things entering on our feed on Twitter or on Reddit. Like, the things that the average person has access to on a daily basis is just mind-boggling and shocking. And it's no reason why so many people just feel stressed out and terrible. The things that they have to experience. And then we have tech CEOs telling us that, maybe we shouldn't have the human race succeed. And, you know, you have his other co-founder talking about how the education system, everything we've been taught doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and all this type of nonsense. Really, where this starts, and I think where the disillusionment really can be highlighted, right, is centered around the idea of Palantir. So Palantir, you can watch many videos and not understand where they're at, what they even do. From a basic understanding, they've been blowing up more recently, not only because of these clip farming situations and the out of touchness of their CEOs, but the fact that A, they're called Palantir, B, their general purpose, and C, they're freaking called Palantir. So it is one of the 7 seeing stones out of Lord of the Rings. For many of you watching this video, you are likely Magic the Gathering players or just nerdists of some type. You are familiar with Lord of the Rings. And if you remember the movies, if you have not read Lord of the Rings or the larger lore, you remember that Sauron in his tower had this orb that he was seeing things through, right? Like, and that is a Palantir. It is a seeing stone, one of 7 that were made, multiple unaccounted for, but Sauron managed to have one of them. Another one also gets shown, I believe, in the movies, but exists regardless in the lore in current time. And they allow you to see over vast regions. It's just like a giant Google Maps, just like some way to mind everyone's business in Middle Earth, right? It's an all-seeing eye in many ways. There are limits to it, but that's really what you get to do with it. It's a lot of power, and you have to have a lot of like sheer force of will to be able to use it, or it's just not going to show you what you want. But use over time does drive people mad. We have Denethor in the lore, as well as Saruman, who, did I say Sauron? I meant Saruman. This is me just misspeaking. Saruman, the wizard. kind of going mad because of the continued use of Palantir, which generally makes sense with how super evil current Palantir is, a company that is a data analytics company. And I am simplifying a lot of this. Okay, so please correct me in my comment section down below. But their stock price has been rising so significantly. They've been coming to the front face of things. Palantir is essentially a company that wants to run after defense contracts. They want the big money. They want to sell their product to the US government or other military powers that want to buy it, likely, again, the US government, and use their data analytics platform to take a bunch of data that the Department of Defense, the CIA, whoever it is, grabbing all this data about soldiers on the field, weapons, how they're built, fire, success, whatever, all this stuff, grab it and use it to make tactical decisions in wartime. And for, I don't know, world decisions, I don't even understand, right? Palantir, taken from Lord of the Rings, the author of which has seen the tragedy of war and has written Lord of the Rings many ways, one for one, to describe the tragedy of war and how the forces of human willpower can ultimately overcome it. So not only is a out-of-touch tech CEO then taking material from something like that and then using it in actually, honestly, a very fitting way to showcase something that is meant to have oversight on things, but ultimately seemingly is driving its users mad and is ultimately going to be something that takes over what we now know as current day intelligence, current day war, and we are actively just feeding into it, making money off of it through the stock system and everything. As I mentioned, you have this one one co-founder that is not ready to even admit that he wants humans live. The other one who's not even a fan of education whatsoever. We have I believe the other one, and this may be the same person actually. I actually think it is the same person, the co-founder of PayPal and everything. Also with all their right-wing conservative views and the whole idea of how they want to have humanity succeed in a way, but also just not include many other people. Like it's just eugenics at that point. And there's whole discussions currently about eugenics and the idea of like, should poor people have kids and everything. And that's a whole other deeper discussion, right? Like the current state of humanity is different, but the way these tech billionaires and these tech CEOs see us is completely wild, right? Because even way back when we had Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, founder of Facebook and everything, actively admit and apologize for psychological experiments that have been going on against some of its users. Right? Absolutely insane without their consent or anything, right? It's just like how AI is taking over so many parts of our current day world and the whole dead internet theory, how a large majority of the internet traffic in the world, and chances are the people you might be interacting with on a regular basis, if you're in the comment sections of YouTubes and everything, are like YouTube and social media platforms are likely just bots. We had that whole Reddit situation who are suing a university research team because they unleashed a whole platform of bots into a advice platform where the bots themselves were based off of generative AI. It's not AGI, artificial generative intelligence or whatever. It's not like it's not the AI that we think of when it comes to iRobot and the 3 laws and all that stuff. It's not Asimov's type of humanity or robots. It is a generative AI that can't think for itself. And so these type of responses skewing human decision making was very problematic, especially when the users did not consent to it. And then it was revealed later on that this university research team from Zurich, well, I believe it was from Zurich. Again, I'm being very careful about how I quote things and being very clear about when I might be misquoting something, but I know that this situation happened, and then the Reddit kind of team itself, the mod team and the owners of it, are suing those individuals for putting out a team of bots out there. So not only do we already have our opinions and our decision making kind of around very important things that we might have advice for on a simple dating relationship, or even a big money making decision like buying a house or funding someone's life or whatever it is, changing someone's life in general, being adapted to or faltered by other robots and AI that can't even think for itself. We also have these tech billionaires committing experiments on us through social engineering, because that's all ad space is. Ultimately, at the end of the day, all of this is about information. Palantir is a data analytics company around information. Google is not a search engine company. It is an ad revenue company, right? It is an information conglomerate. It wants to take your information through Google Maps, through your searches, through your emails on Gmail, all this type of stuff. Data is being gathered on all aspects. When you send out your emails, when you go on a walk, when you search for certain things telling you you're at your desk, all this information comes together to sell to ad companies, marketing companies, to then ultimately sell you products. You engage in technology to make money. Maybe that is through calling someone on your phone, your boss, to get into work, calling a client on your phone, or just being literally at your desk, maybe selling products or managing products, whatever it is. And then you get data taken from you on that to then have companies further sell you things while you're there making that money, to just cycle that money back in. It is an infinite money generation hack. And similar to how Facebook already has its, social experiments going on, not only do we have the metaverse in a way that is meant to potentially connect people all over the world, we are lonelier than ever thanks to these tech billionaires because of the prevalence of social media, the prevalence of how we connect people. And that honestly did start in many ways back in the day with MySpace, as well as the popularization of the Facebook status. Many people just posting anything that they want about their lives, and Facebook slowly tracking that data and getting people used to it, making the platform more accessible with its mobile usage and its kind of crosstalk between Instagram and now Threads and everything. It is making it so that if you want to connect with someone, the best way to do so is through these social media platforms. And it is not really a great form of connection when we lose that human connection, the lack of ability to go touch grass and communicate with other people. And so this is where we start getting this dissonance with so many people. Not only with other tech CEOs do we get this type of issue, but none is more prevalent than with someone like Elon Musk, where we have someone who talks about ways where he wants to help the world and help cure diseases and solve many issues out there, and yet we have multiple billions and millions of dollars being wasted on his multiple companies of Neuralink and Tesla, the way they kind of are manufactured, the cars are manufactured, the way Neuralink is just probably not a good idea, not even probably, just not a great idea if every piece of tech is being taken from us to just go into ad space. I highly recommend all of y'all actually go into a more recent example of this that I think highlights this really well with the Netflix show about the horrors of technology. If I can just look it up right now. Oh, Black Mirror, that's what it is. The first episode of the last season of Black Mirror, where, spoiler alert, by the way, you've had plenty of time to watch it, so maybe just skip a couple of minutes ahead or whatever. But what happens is a couple in there, they're working very hard. They got, they're not making the highest pay, not working the highest paying jobs. One's a laborer, the other one's a teacher. And what happens is the teacher, the wife in question, gets sick. And so they are put into a coma. And then a tech company comes up to the husband and says, we can put an implant into her. And as long as she has the implant, she will be fine. And then what happens is ultimately the implant gets put on a subscription service. Her health and well-being get put on a subscription service that they are unable to keep up, and she ultimately has to pass away close to the end of the episode because the subscription prices increase. There are more subscriptions. There are downsides to be put on certain things. Things are being taken away from us, and the whole idea of ownership and everything is being proliferated by many tech CEOs out there. Everything is now a subscription. We have Adobe essentially having a monopoly on the creative space, just not being able to have Photoshop or editing tools all in one uniform system. Just having that only exist within the Adobe ecosystem and having to go to multiple different softwares to just get similar things. It's hard to do. It's hard to argue the AI capabilities of what Photoshop can do. It's very powerful. It's very good for creatives to be able to do something like that in terms of enhancing their, not even just their potential, but what they can offer to other people. But then also, once you take the AI too far, it just ultimately ends up stealing from the artists themselves and removing them from the equation. It's just replacing them by working with them. It was like the old model that honestly still exists in many ways in the Eastern world, where in China you have partnerships where US companies will come on, but then they work specifically with Chinese or just kind of local people that are working close next to them, big officials and everything. And ultimately they take the model, replace it, and just find another company. This is where you get one-for-ones with systems such as Temu and Alibaba in comparison to something like Amazon. Now, obviously there's a whole swath of regulations that kind of differ with it, data breaches in Temu and Alibaba respectively. So the quality of items in each one of those is very different, but the whole idea of fast fashion has been proliferated by not only Amazon, but again, Temu, Alibaba internationally. And these owners out there are just there for the incentives. They want to throw ads at you. Have y'all ever just opened the Temu app at all? It's like horrendous. It's like opening some type of mobile gaming app. And like, that's probably the idea of it. The wheels, the colors, all the animations, everything. And so with going back to Elon Musk and his whole idea of like trying to help people and his crazy ideas around Neuralink, we can already highlight that, you know, going into an implant ecosystem where things are being inserted into our body, maybe robotic arms that can be controlled externally, or chips into our mind that can read our health data. You can imagine how that starts to become problematic if they can start inserting ads into our vision and controlling our dreams. So many people talk about adding dreams or ads into our dreams, and Elon Musk just kind of proliferating the worst social media out there, the hellscape that is Twitter, buying it up, realizing it was a loss, just firing a bunch of staff, removing so many restrictions on it. You know, the blocking system doesn't even really work at all. There's so many things about what Elon Musk does that is problematic. There's so many things about what the Palantir co-founders do that, you know, Mark Zuckerberg does. There's so many examples of tech CEOs that are viciously out of touch with society, with how they're, manipulating us, using us for just data, to just sell in terms of how we go about our lives, what our day-to-day is, and just selling that as marketing to sell us even more products. And that's where the money is. It's not the product sales, although those organizations need to exist, but the real money is in that ad space. And you watching this video is me taking advantage of that as well, because YouTube says as you watch this video, the ads that you watch on this video are going to be paying me. And that's what I choose to do. I choose to take advantage of this through clickbait thumbnails, clickbait titles, and just the ways I speak, the scripts that I have, the topics I bring up, all are in a way to just get to watch me in the creator attention economy. Everything is about grabbing attention. But even in the world of CEOs farming clips, doing interviews, and unfortunately joining these crazy podcasts, they just get away with saying the craziest stuff because there's people out there that genuinely believe that you can achieve that type of wealth. And similar to a point that I was talking about closer to the beginning of this video around being a millionaire, how that's probably not even that much money depending on where you're at. Depending on where you're at, it may be, you know, just enough to buy one house, half a house. Depending on where you're at, it might be a ton of money, but you don't have the resources to store it, to grow it, to use it even safely. If you're in a slum, why would you give someone $1 million? They're going to get robbed. They're going to get targeted. It's a dangerous thing to have that much money. So how do you get this much wealth transferred? How do you use it safely? All these people out there that are supposedly rich are selling you courses. Well, you know, newsflash, buddy, in a world of capitalism, if someone has a course to sell you, they're either, the product they're selling you is either the course, not the information, or they are just lying to you straight up and just taking the money, in which case it kind of is one anyway. Because why would they sell you something that is making them rich? Why would they take that secret away? There's nothing that does to benefit anybody in capitalism. These people that are making money just want to continue to make more money. They either want to rent their Lamborghinis and sell you a course, or they're just going to stay quiet and continue to push their buttons and make their money while, you know, hands off and everything, hire their yacht girls and just be crazy people out there in the richest places that some people will never see in their entire lives. Places in this world are sheltered off from the general human existence. There are people out there that will never see the ocean. There are people out there that will never breathe clean air. There are people out there that will never see grass. if you can think about it. There are people out there that will never understand true human existence. And if it was up to these tech CEOs, we'd all be stuck in these matrix pods, sucking on glop, tubby custard from the Teletubbies. We'd all be sucking on tubby custard. I can't even speak. And we would just be being fed information, buying things, just being this vessel of purchasing information, while these CEOs escape into space with Katy Perry, going off to Mars, living in their Mars mansions as we rot away on Earth. And there's so many reasons why we need to hold these people accountable. Right? And there are many ways we have. If I talked about probably one of the more recent examples, this video would probably get demonetized. I would probably get a flag on my thing, but maybe it was something that happened to a certain healthcare CEO. Maybe, I don't know. But there are ways that we have opted to find ways to hold them accountable. And in many ways, we see that in the movement of even piracy, how piracy is seen as not wrong anymore because of the fact that ownership isn't really a thing. Even through the Steam platform, which I have plenty of games on, those are all licenses for the games. I don't own those games. If Steam disappears tomorrow, I've lost a ton of money. Heck, I've lost a ton of games that I have never played and I will never get back. But that is the reality of our existence right now. Everything is borrowed. We don't own anything. Honestly, I don't even own this house that I have right now. I pay a mortgage on it. And that's the biggest scam that people tell you, that, owning a home means something. Honestly, I feel cynical in the sense that I probably won't even get my retirement plan by the time I'm old enough. I don't know where humanity is going to be at by the time I'm 60, I'm 70. The bank will probably take my house at this point because I don't own my house. The bank owns my house. And there's plenty of examples, even in the Western world, of how even if you own your house, it doesn't matter. The government can come and just move it because they have some legal reason to. Something was found under the house or something nearby. You just lose your property. You don't actually own anything. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand. They're so stuck in the idea that value, long-term value, making money, adjusted income over time. And yes, there are merits to that. If you believe in the success of humanity, then those fruits will have their fruition. They will come to success later down the line. And you should invest in stocks and ETFs or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a financial advisor. But what I'm saying is we need to really open our eyes to the things that are going on around us. We need to be consistent with our thoughts. How we shame people for, not subscribing to this, subscribing to this movement that, we're a part of. We feel so closely about, for myself, I'm a Muslim myself. And so I care a lot in a personal way about the potential things happening to Uyghurs in China. But because of that, I'm not going to harp on someone else who is telling me to care about what's going on in the Congo, because that's a really crazy thing that's happening over there too. How so many slaves out there are being, having their lives destroyed. Families are being made in slavery just to mine cobalt and minerals for the computers, monitors, and phones that we're using to communicate with each other right now. It's crazy that we don't have that consistency. There is always something going on. There is always something wrong. And yet people are so focused on, because of how tech CEOs have got us with the information that they have curated, with the channels that we communicate with each other on, with how we uptake information, with how we understand information, with how we have media literacy just nowhere in existence. We believe stuff like, kind of being too woke or something, having people just exist is problematic. Because remember, folks, it is racist when people say this show is too woke. Because if there's too much representation of something, if it's too woke and political to have something overrepresented, then it's also woke and political for it to not be represented. You understand how that makes sense, right? If there are too many black people in a movie, it's also woke and crazy and overrepresented if everyone's just white in that movie. You understand that, right? That makes sense. If that doesn't make sense, I don't know what to tell you. You're just an idiot. You're actually you're gone. Mentally, you're gone. And you're probably just a racist as well. People who use the word woke unironically are probably part of this nonsense. I know Elon Musk is using that word unironically as well, because he somehow managed, as a private entity, as a CEO of a private organization, get behind the US government. How do we allow private organizations to get behind the US government? Like, is that okay? Like, that's like a new norm for us now? Like, I don't understand. Tech CEOs are absolutely crazy. How much we revere them is absolutely crazy. How we take the information that they spoon feed us and not see past that is actually crazy. You know, I saw this meme the other day, and it was like how conspiracies on the left versus the right work. You know, the conspiracies on the left will just be like, you know, tech CEOs are taking our information and taking advantage of us, which is literally just the truth. It used to be the dead internet theory. That's just true at this point. But then like right-wing conspiracies are like deep, crazy, you know, million-mile underground tunnels within like the pyramids and like aliens coming in flat earth and everything. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It just goes to show you the disconnect between people in general here, how we don't care for each other at all. And we've allowed different parts of our lives and the world to take us past being human. We've lost empathy, and we're slowly turning into a smaller version of what these tech CEOs are. Just unempathetic, just lacking humanity. It doesn't matter. It does not matter if Mark Zuckerberg has made remixes of any songs, sung them again for his wife, because that's, you know, the song they sung when they met in college or whatever. It doesn't matter. That doesn't humanize him, because ultimately the things that he's allowing and doing through his companies and allowing just for profit is part of the problem. And it honestly is the whole problem, just like every other tech billionaire is. They are losing the ability to be human. They are preventing us from learning to become human, because we don't have the knowledge and education that they do. In some ways we do, but it's very clear the masses don't. With the average intelligence of the population, they are not able to think past the fact that no, a billionaire is not ethical, right? The amount of jet flights that Taylor Swift takes, she's not an ethical person. Right? Taylor Swift is not an ethical person. Tech CEOs are not ethical people. A lot of rich people out there are not ethical people. You cannot earn your way up there in a moral way. So we should not be looking up to that. And I guess the whole idea of what is moral now is different, you know, decade to decade or whatever. Things change over time. But currently right now, this is how we think. And it's absolutely wild that we let any of this pass. And in many ways, we're trapped. Right? We're trapped into this consumption cycle. And many of us, we're stuck in the houses we're in because of where we're working. We're stuck with the families we have because of where we've lived, all that type of stuff. We didn't ask to exist. We didn't go up to some primordial being, as far as we know, and ask them to exist in humanity at this time. We just got plopped in here, and we now have to make it work, which is really sad, because many other people out there don't want that for you. They barely want it for themselves, but it's very clear out there that when it comes to human rights, that many people out there would rather you not exist, and they would rather these tech CEOs exist. And it's absolutely crazy to me that they believe that. It's insane to me that we've gotten to the point where the diversity that we have is in many ways problematic to some people, and we can't find the good things in that. We can't find the ways to be with each other, to connect and move past some of these differences that have been given to us by these out of touch millionaires taking our information, selling us product, and treating us like numbers on a dashboard. That's ultimately what we are: an age group, a demographic, whatever it is. When we, you know, put in a job application for the job of our dreams, and we don't get it because of the whole ghosting economy that's going on right now, we still go in there and put ourselves into a demographic, what our background is, especially if you've done like a Bamboo HR job application. You've put in your background, race, and ethnicity, right? Bamboo HR is just collecting that data as an HR software, probably to sell at some point. And all of our consent is being driven away in these platforms in these super crazy million-word user agreement lists that ain't nobody read, but it's legal for us to just click OK and move on, don't know what we're signing up for, because we do that day to day at every point in our lives, even with student loans and stuff, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars that we have no concept of how much value it is. We're just trying to get in on the teenage experience. We're just trying to be a young adult. We're just trying to live in this world, but we're forced into making these decisions that we have no clear route as to their overall their long-lasting effects. And now with, you know, the whole AI situation going around in the world, talking about how they're already taking over the work of artists and kind of putting them as useless individuals in the chain of production. when it comes to how AI is being even manipulated in the world, people talking about how that whole idea of an AI thinking for itself might actually just be around the corner. How, the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, he talks about progress, right? And he talks about doing the best for humanity, but actively is in contract with Microsoft to sell that AI, because Microsoft is just in it for the data. They're just in it for the information and how they can use it to better increase their marketing, their ad pushes, and how to take advantage of your information. Kind of like how Palantir is already doing with the war effort and defense contracts. That's likely what they're doing anyway. These things are already happening with people that believe and say that they have the best interests in humanity aligned with them. Yet when they go on these podcasts, they go on these shows, and they go on these news channels, they say the wildest crap out there. And we believe it. We suck it in as people. We don't critically think about it. And even when we try to critically think about it, we're getting so much information put at us, it's hard to find something to care about. That's the thing, right? That's the tactic. Overwhelm you. Give you so many pieces of devastation and dystopia that you can no longer focus on the central issue at hand, which honestly is your immediate community and yourself. But even that can be seen as something just completely bad. Remember when Mark Zuckerberg, look this up by the way, remember when Mark Zuckerberg called users dumb fucks for believing him about his data? It's just, I can list multiple scenarios, multiple issues of what's going on with, multiple different tech CEOs. I've talked about Palantir, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, even gave you a little bit of Sam Altman in there. Regardless, there's so many things happening with the rhetoric being given out about these CEOs, the destruction of the environment and our ecosystem by the organizations and the products that these CEOs are in charge of. There's so many things in terms of psychological harm and physical harm to adults, seniors, young teens, even kids. There are so many irreparable things happening in the world right now. Oh, this is another fun one to look up that just popped into our mind. Speaking of irreparable damage, maybe you want to look up the study that talks about how we all have just plastics in our body. We have microplastics in our body, and there's no way to actually find there's no way to actually find a person that doesn't have that, a person to compare all of our results against. Because all these babies that are born now all have microplastics within them. All adults and seniors in the world just have microplastics within them. It is all over our system. The radiation that we get in certain parts of the world, the dirt and bacteria and all the things that are largely solvable, the overpopulation and everything. There are so many things that are solvable by these tech CEOs that if we were to disperse all of this money, we would just be in a better existence. Maybe the economy would collapse. Maybe we don't need the economy. Maybe we could all just work towards everyone's betterment. Maybe we need UBI. Maybe we need to work it in something like where The Expanse was. The Expanse one was kind of dystopian too, to be fair. Everyone had UBI, but it was limited. You could live, you had TV, you had an apartment, everything. But then you wouldn't have the greater things in life. You still were in kind of borderline poverty and everything. So there's all these issues. Really, this video was a rant. It didn't have too much structure in there, but when will the tech CEOs get it? When will they realize this technosphere of dystopia that they are proliferating and they're cultivating for their own profits and the betterment of their own dynasty is not what the masses want? It's not what we want. It's not actually good in the long term, but again, it's not about the long term. It's about the immediate. It's about the now. It's about how we can be better now. The ways that we are progressing, quote unquote, as a society is so fast. Think about how long it took us to get to the Industrial Revolution. Think about how long it took us to get from hunter-gatherer to that. Take a look at how long it took us to get from the internet to the mass consumption of the internet through social media. Now we have AI. Think about what the next decade will be. We had the internet in the early 2000s. We then had social media boom in the 2010s. We now, honestly, I would say the 2020s are going to be defined by AI in many ways. And it's not a when, it's an if. It's not an if, it's a when of when AI will be everywhere. You can't run from it. You can't stop using AI. It's going to be in everything. Every product you have, every platform you use, everything you encounter will be made or in some way downstream have been manipulated by AI at some point because of how fast it is growing, how fast it's being used. It's only inevitable. So when will these CEOs actually try and stop it in a way where it's not just because it's harming their profits? When will it happen? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I think I could go on for days about all this. At this point, I'm just losing my facts and just rambling about how bad it is. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below, where we're at with all these crazy rich tech CEOs that are completely out of touch, and what we can do to actually improve our situation. It's a very cynical video, but regardless, it's one that honestly needs to be talked about. It's one that needs to be brought up. And I'd love to hear your examples of things that crazy rich tech CEOs have done that make them kind of out of touch. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Let me know your stories down below. I love to kind of pin them and keep them in my back pocket when my friends and I, or anyone I know, and I are swapping stories about dystopia.